cobra had given her and threw at him, and down he sank to the bottom of the tank. A second time he rose and came toward her, and she threw the second stone at him, and he sank down again. A third time he came more fiercely than before. When seizing the third stone, she threw it with all her force. No sooner did it touch him than the spell was broken, and there, instead of a fish, stood a handsome young prince. The poor little Fakir's daughter was so startled that she began to cry. But the prince said to her, "Pretty maiden, do not be frightened. You have rescued me from a horrible thraldom, and I can never thank you enough. But if you will be the Muchie Rani, we will be married tomorrow." Then he sat down on the doorstep, thinking over his strange fate and watching for the dawn. Next morning, early, several inquisitive people came to see if the Muchie Raja had eaten up his poor little wife, as they feared he would. What was their astonishment, on looking over the tank wall, to see not the Muchie Raja, but a magnificent prince. The news soon spread to the palace. Down came the Raja, down came the Rani, down came all the attendants, and dragged Muchie Raja and the Fakir's daughter up the side of the tank in a basket. And when they heard their story, there were great and unparalleled rejoicings. The Rani said, "So I have indeed found a son at last." And the people were so delighted, so happy, and so proud of the new prince and princess that they covered all their paths with damask from the town to the palace, and cried to their fellows, "Come and see our new prince and princess. Wherever any is so divinely beautiful, come see a right royal couple, a pair of mortals like the gods." And when they reached the palace, the prince was married to the Fakir's daughter. There they lived very happily for some time. The Muchie Rani's stepmother, hearing what had happened, came often to see her stepdaughter and pretended to be delighted at her good fortune. And the Rani was so good that she quite forgave all her stepmother's former cruelty and always received her very kindly. At last, one day, the Muchie Rani said to her husband, "It is a very while since I saw my father. If you will give me a loan, I should much like to visit my native village and see him again." "Very well," he replied, "you may go, but do not stay away long, for there can be no happiness for me till you return." So she went, and her father was delighted to see her. But her stepmother, though she pretended to be very kind, was in reality only glad to think she had got the Rani into her power, and determined, if possible, never to allow her to return to the palace again. One day, therefore, she said to her own daughter, "It is hard that your stepsister should have become Rani of all the land instead of being eaten up by the great fish, while we gain no more than a lac of gold mohurs. Do now as I bid you, that you may become Rani in her stead." Then she went on to instruct her how she must invite the Rani down to the river bank, and there begged her to let her try on her jewels, and while putting them on, give her a push and drown her in the river. The girl consented, and standing by the river bank, said to her stepsister, "Sister, may I try on your jewels? How pretty they are!" "Yes," said the Rani, "and we shall be able to see in the river how they look." So, undoing her necklaces, she clasped them around the other's neck. But while she was doing so, her stepsister gave her a push, and she fell backward into the river. The girl watched to see that the body did not rise, and then, running back, said to her mother, "Mother, here are all the jewels, and she will trouble us no more." But it happened that just when her stepsister pushed the Rani into the river, her old friend, the seven-headed cobra, chanced to be swimming across it, and seeing the little Rani likely to be drowned, he carried her on his back until they reached his hold, into which he took her safely. Now this hole, in which the cobra and his wife and all his little ones lived, had two entrances, the one under the water and leading to the river, and the other above water, leading out into the open fields. To this upper end of his hold, the cobra took the Muchie Rani, where he and his wife took care of her, and there she lived with them for some time. Meanwhile, the wicked fakir's wife, having dressed up her own daughter in all the Rani's jewels, took her to the palace and said to the Muchie Raja, "See, I brought your wife, my dear daughter, back safe and well." The Raja looked at her and thought, "This does not look like my wife." However, the room was dark, and the girl was cleverly disguised, and he thought he might be mistaken. Next day he said again, "My wife must be sadly changed, or this cannot be she, for she was always bright and cheerful. She had pretty loving ways and merry words, while this woman never opens her lips." Still, he did not like to seem to mistrust his wife, and comforted himself by saying, "Perhaps she is tired with the long journey." On the third day, however, he could bear the uncertainty no longer, and tearing off her jewels saw, not the face of his own little wife, but another woman. Then he was very angry, and turned her out of doors, saying, "Begone! Since you are but the wretched tool of others, I'll spare your life." But of the fakir's wife he said to his guards, "Fetch that woman here instantly, for unless she can tell me where my wife is, I will have her hanged." It chanced, however, that the fakir's wife had heard of the Muchie Raja having turned her daughter out of doors. So, fearing his anger, she hid herself, and was not to be found. Meantime, the Muchie Rani, not knowing how to get home, continued to live in the great seven-headed cobra's hole, and he and his wife and all his family were very kind to her, and loved her as if she had been one of them. And there her little son was born, and she called him Muchie after the Muchie Raja, his father. Muchie was a lovely child, merry and brave, and his playmates